guys, my name is Liam, and today we're going to be talking about the brand new Lamzu Thorn. Lamzu has been dropping hit after hit, so is that going to be the case for the Thorn? And is this going to be the perfect gaming mouse for you? Let's check it out. Alright guys, and before we get started, I did want to let you know that obviously since this has not been released yet, Lamzu did send this out to me. However, with that being said, everything you'll be hearing in this video today will be my own words and my truthful, honest opinions. Starting out with the box, here's what it looks like if you've ever picked up an Atlantis or an Atlantis Mini. And coming over to the back, the battery life on the Thorn is being reported at 80 hours. I do believe that that is with the 1K polling rate enabled. I do know that this mouse does feature a 250 milliamp hour battery, and if you're using it with the 4K, all the maxed out settings, I was getting typically around 3 days of use. It shows it comes in at 52 grams, and we'll drop it on a scale here shortly, but I just want to let you guys know this does have all the exact same internals that the Lamzu Atlantis OG V2 4K, Mini 4K has in it, and the Pro versions as well. And one thing that they did decide to change inside this mouse due to the feedback from the community is they moved over to an optical switch from the Huano blue shell pink dots. And as you open up the box, you're greeted with this really cool introduction to how they came up with the name for the Thorn. And over here on the right side, same stuff as before. Here we have the mouse. And just so you know, the Thorn actually comes with this dongle, and this dongle is only good up to 1K polling rate. So if you did want to get the 2K polling rate or the 4K polling rate from the mouse, you will need to purchase the dongle separately. And then coming over here to the left side, same stuff as before. All the goodies over here on the left side. You're introduced with a bag for the mouse. It does come with a white USB-C cable. And also inside the bag, they do include their cool looking blue dongle adapter. And then they also have a manual, an extra set of PTFE skates, and these PTFE skates are great. They feel really premium as always. They also do provide you with a sticker for the bottom of the mouse. And then of course it does also come included with these premium mouse grips. So coming over to the mouse, starting out on the bottom, here's what the bottom looks like. Up here you do have a button right here in the top middle. This button is for changing the DPI. You do have the power button down here. It's just a switch. You can just turn over to the right to power it on, over here to the left to power it off. And then you have this cool, unique looking PTFE skate design. When I first saw the design of this mouse, I thought that these two were going to be buttons right here, but these are actually PTFE skates. So you got the 3 on this side, the 3 on this side, and then you have this one big skate in the middle. And I must say, even though the skate design looks pretty unique, as I was using it and tracking with it in game, I really feel like it gives you a really solid and stable feeling, and overall it performed very well. And coming back over to the top of the mouse. And before we get started here, I did want to put out a really quick disclaimer. This is a pre-production sample unit that Lamzu sent out to me. They asked me to test the mouse and to let them know if I feel like they should make any adjustments or changes. So with that being said, I'm not going to be going too in-depth with everything here, but I will be sharing a general overview, trying to explain to you guys the best way that I can to let you know how my experiences have been with using this. As far as the general overall quality, everything feels super premium, just as it has on all the other Lamzu mice. I really am enjoying how these optical switches feel. I do feel like they feel great. They feel slightly a little bit heavier than the Huano blue shell pink dots, but they pretty much feel in line to something like the X2 Bruce Lee edition, the optical switches that are in that, and they even feel pretty similar to the Razer Gen 3 optical switches. But everything feels really solid and feels really tight. They did an incredible job with the click feeling on the mouse. The scroll wheel feels really good as well, has nice defined steps, pretty easy to spam. And then moving over the side buttons as well, one thing that I really noticed about these side buttons is how incredibly premium they feel. The post travel on them is nuts, because as soon as you hit this really solid wall, there's like no play side to side on them. And I just feel like overall everything about the feeling of this mouse in hands just feels really solid. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate for you what the clicks sound like, and I'm gonna throw in a quick comparison between the Thorn and the Atlantis. And here's a sound comparison of what the Thorn's optical switches sound like compared to the X2 Bruce Lee edition and the Razer DAV3 V2 Pro. The coating on the Thorn is the same that comes on the brand new Lamzu Atlantis OG V2 4K and the Pro Edition, as well as on the Atlantis Mini 4K and Pro Editions as well. I'm really a huge fan of this coating. I didn't have any problems with this mouse slipping in my hands, and I feel like the grip on it just works perfectly for me. On my scale, it looks like I got it coming in at approximately 53.9 grams. And when it comes to the shape of the Thorn, if I were to line it up here to the left, I have the Atlantis Mini, and over here to the right, I have the full-size OG Atlantis. I do feel like the Thorn is kind of more in line with the size of the Atlantis OG. As far as the overall fillings and dimensions between these two mice, as you can see here looking at them, they're not really that far off. The Atlantis does have this way wider top end, but as far as the dimensions on the bottom go, I kind of feel like the Thorn is just slightly a bit wider on the bottom of the mouse compared to the Lamzu Atlantis OG. But as you can see here, the overall scale of these two mice, they're not really that far apart from one another. And when it does come to the overall shape of the Lamzu Thorn, I must say that for me personally, the shape has been incredibly comfortable for me. One thing that I do feel like they've done is, I feel like on the top of all the Lamzu mice, especially with the Atlantis, even though they had a rear curve in the back or a rear hump, you know, the rear hump is kind of bigger and wider, but I feel like Lamzu really kind of has this style where they specialize in having really smooth curves at the top of the mouse. If you look here at the front of the Thorn, I really feel like the other ergo mice kind of in the same category. I feel like they're much more aggressive with the side hump over here to the left. I feel like they're a lot more pointy and they stick up a bit higher, and this is kind of smooth and flatten out and sits a little bit lower than some of the other current offerings that are in the same range or ballpark of being the size of a mouse. As you can see here from the side profile, it has a very soft curvature from the front of the mouse all the way to the back, and it truly just kind of sits in your hands very comfortably, and it has this very relaxed feeling. The curve from the left side of the mouse over to the right, it does feel pretty soft. It is pretty similar to the other offerings out there, but I never felt myself having any issues gripping the side of the mouse to where it felt like it was too slanted, like my fingers going to slip off of it or anything. As I was using this mouse, I was using it with fingertip grip. I was doing all types of different types of relaxed claw grips, even palm grip. I felt like every type of grip style worked very well. The way that I preferred gripping the mouse when I was using it was something like this. And as you can see, the way that it fits in my hands, it fits in there very comfortably and it feels very natural. And as always, I put the dimensions of my hands down in the description below for you guys to see, just as I do in all my videos. So far I've been a really huge fan of the overall shape of the Thorn and how it feels in the hands. So let's go ahead and compare it to some of the other offerings out there on the market to kind of give you a better idea on where it sits. So starting out, when comparing the Lamzu Thorn to the Vaxee NP-01s, I would say that overall the Thorn kind of sits somewhere along the categories of more of a medium style mouse. As you can see here, when comparing it to the bottom of the NP-01s, the Vaxee definitely does feel a bit more thin and narrow compared to the Thorn. Coming over to the rear of the mice is where you can see that the Thorn clearly sits up a bit higher and looks a bit wider overall compared to the NP-01s. And the fact that the Vaxee sits a little bit lower and feels a little bit narrow, it does kind of make it feel like a little bit of a longer mouse in the hands, although it does kind of have this little rear hump back here. It is a lot more flattened out at the top. And looking at these two mice from the side, you can clearly see how the Thorn fills up your hands a bit more than the NP-01s. Next up, when comparing the Thorn to the Pwnage Stormbreaker, both of these mice don't really feel that far apart from each other in terms of overall size, but as you can clearly see here, starting out from the bottom of the mice, I would definitely say that the Thorn does feel like a bit of a wider mouse compared to the Stormbreaker. And when coming over here to the rear profile, as you can see here, the height has a little more aggressive curves on the top of the mouse down to the sides, whereas the Thorn overall feels softer. And then finally, when comparing these two from the sides, as you can see on the Stormbreaker, it does have a little bit more aggressive curves slanting towards the front and the rear of the mouse, whereas I do feel like on the Thorn, it does have a little bit softer of a curve from front to back. I would say that it does feel a little bit wider, and it does have a little bit softer curvature to the back, so it does make it feel just slightly a little bit longer in the hands compared to the Stormbreaker. Alright, next up, when comparing the Lamzu Thorn to the Pulsar Xlite V2. Both of these mice are very comparable to one another when it comes to overall size. As you can clearly see here on the bottom of the mice, when you put them together and you try and touch the most narrow point of the mouse, even if you're to line them up in the front, they feel really similar when it comes in terms of the overall width. The two differences, however, is I do feel like the curvature on the top of the Thorn, it feels a bit softer, whereas on the Xlite V2, you do have a hump over here on the left side. It feels a little bit more pointy, it sticks up a little bit higher, and I feel like it makes the overall curve profile down to the right side of the mouse feel a little bit more aggressive on the Xlite V2. And another thing that I feel like kind of makes these mice stand apart is, as you can see here on the Xlite V2, I feel like it kind of tapers off to the rear just a little bit less aggressively, a little slower, and it does make the Xlite V2 feel like it's a little bit longer in the hands as compared to when you're holding the Lamzu Thorn. It does kind of drop off more quick, and it does make the Thorn feel like it's a little bit shorter in the hands. Alright, and then finally, when comparing the Lamzu Thorn to the Razer DAV3 V3 Pro. Some of the biggest differences between these two mice, I do feel like the Razer DAV3 V3 Pro does feel like a little bit of a larger mouse. Though they're not that far off from one another, I do feel like the DAV3 V3 Pro does feel a little bit wider in the hands, and it does have more aggressive flaring out towards the front and the rear of the mouse. Coming over to the rear profile, as you can see, the Thorn has much more soft curves and it doesn't sit up as high as the Razer DAV3 V3 Pro. It definitely sits up much higher here on the left side, and I feel like it makes it curve way more aggressively off to the right side of the mouse. And then finally, coming over here on the side profiling of the mice, even though the DAV3 V3 Pro does have a really aggressive drop off from the top middle hump to the rear of the mouse, as you can clearly see here, I do feel like overall the Lamzu, it just kind of feels like a little bit smaller of a mouse all around in the hands from the Razer DAV3 V3 Pro. So if I kind of had to pick a place on how the overall size of the Lamzu Thorn is, just overall in general, I would kind of put it somewhere right here in between the Pwnage Stormbreaker and the Pulsar Xlite V2. Everyone who always watches my channel knows that I'm a huge Lamzu fan. Something about the shape of their mice, it just always works for the size of my hands, and I really feel like it's no exception here for the Lamzu Thorn. For me personally, the shape of the mouse is one of the most comfortable ergo shapes that I've ever felt. The coating, the buttons, the performance, everything on this mouse just seems to work out perfectly for me. I'm really excited to see how the community is going to react to the Thorn, but coming in at the weight that it comes in at, the performance, the overall feeling, there is no doubt in my mind that Lamzu has a clear winner on their hands here. Alright guys, so if you have any questions or feel like I left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. Aside from that, if you've enjoyed watching this video and are interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, please drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel. I've left affiliate links down in the description below if you're looking at picking up any of these mice and supporting the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.